Hey guys, it's me, Swag. I'm going to try and make this a series on my channel called Rework Concepts. Instead of lazy moveset suggestions, I'm going to review the stand's current moveset, what should be changed, and how viable it is for game modes. This series will give an in-depth look on certain stands that are looked over that need reworks. This is the first episode. Hope you guys enjoy it, and comment down below other stands I should look at and what I can add on to this series. I also want to mention that I have a Roblox merch in my group store, which is linked below in the description, so please check it out. And if you like it, then want to rep the swaggers, then please take a look. With that out of the way, thank you for watching, and let's get right into the video.
I'm in the zoo with the lions and apes and bears. You probably won't make it there. One of the options, they say they want smoke with me. You don't want to take it there. And these niggas be hating this shit here. It's like a disease. I'm glad that I came prepared. I'm the worst case scenario.
White Album's moveset is as lackluster as it can get. One move and that's it, plus a deflector that slows people down and a good mobility tool. The one move it has is actually pretty good, as it has hyper armor, good large hitbox, does decent damage, procs gently weeps, and has a low cooldown. The only problem is that it's so predictable since it's your only move, so a lot of people will see it coming since it's so slow and super easy to dodge. This is one of the reasons I recommend getting pluck instead of boxing for White Album, but we'll get into that later in the video. So let's get into the moveset. Did you notice what I noticed about White Album's current moveset? Well, if you didn't, it's that it only has 5 moves. 3 of them being unique, 1 actually doing damage. While yes, the one move White Album does have is pretty good, it only does 30 damage, which you can regenerate from. This makes White Album a very slow and boring stand, not to mention its already slow, weak barrage. But to have only 1 move on top of that makes it a pain to fight as and against. And White Album isn't an easy stand to fight either, with its ice armor passive, which makes it hard to even deal damage on it, and its ice skate, which it can use to run and stall for cooldowns. White Album overall just isn't very fun to play as and against. Now it does have some losing matchups, being King Crimson, D4C, Any Time Stop Stand, Anubis, Sea Moon, and Maiden Heaven. There are probably a few others I might have forgot to mention, but those are the main ones. It can't be a rework concept without a new moveset. So here's a moveset that I put together for White Album. The main things I was looking out for were damage output, skill tree cost, and the amount of moves. Some stuff mentioned was actually suggested to me for a White Album moveset for my upcoming JoJo game Standing Spirits by a friend of mine. If you want to check out the game and support our release, please join the Discord server. That will be linked down in the description. Okay, so this part is entirely off script, but I didn't get any sources, like any clips that would make good reference out of these passives that I have here. So ice armor is the same as it already is, but this new thing that someone came up for me was an ability called frostbite. So all your abilities proc a gently weeps effect, which builds up a bar similar to rage. Once frostbite is built up, you can unleash it, which makes all of your abilities inflict bleed, plus you take less damage and do more damage. So it's basically like rage mode for Star Platinum in the world in those stands, but even better. But to kind of balance it out, some abilities will take up the frostbite bar, like gently weeps or something like that, so it isn't as spammable as it already is now, and to kind of balance out frostbite, since that itself is already pretty OP. But yeah, this is just a little unique thing that someone suggested to me, and I wanted to put in here, so yeah. This is just gonna be for 1v1s, since nobody does 2v2s, main game is awful, and SBR has too many circumstances to count them all for this segment. So this is gonna be just based purely on 1v1 viability. But since I'm too lazy to go in depth on White Album 1v1s, even though there isn't even a lot of depth since White Album has no mix-ups, I'm just gonna let Eclipse do it for me. Take it away, Eclipse.
Next up is something that moved over from the last tier list, and this one's actually gone down a tier, and I think that's White Album. White Album I very heavily overestimated in my last tier list, and in this one I think it's safe to put it in usable. I've played a lot more White Albums since the last time I played, and I know there's going to be White Album specialists that get mad at me, because there's going to be specialists upon any stand that get mad at me when I say their stand isn't as good as they think it is. But really, White Album just has almost no options. The mobility of ice skating is great, and Flash Freeze is an awesome move, as well as Gently Weeps being incredibly annoying, but at the end of the day, a lot of what it comes down to is a game of attrition with White Album. And if you're running up against people with time stop, you are in trouble. You can't do enough burst damage to kill those people before they build their rage if they have a rage time stop stand. And if they have just a regular time stopping stand, you're ultra screwed. So I think when you consider those things and the fact that it doesn't have too many options, and it does kind of toe the line between solid choices and usable, but overall, I think I'd throw it in usable.
Honestly, this is probably the most irrelevant and unimportant part of this review, but I just included it just to include it. I was also going to have voice lines in it too, but you could just take the voice lines from the moveset rework that I did, since I added clips from the anime in it, and you could use voice lines from that there. But I'm going to get the most obvious, skin that we all want out of the way. Frozone. Let's be real, we all want a Frozone skin for White Album. The guy who's like, where's my super suit? You know, like, he's icy, like, cold, like, it's literally perfect for White Album. I still don't know why this stand doesn't even have any skins yet, since it has a bunch of skin potential. But yeah, I'll just put the rest on the screen since this doesn't really matter. And yeah, so let's get on to the conclusion. Remember how I said that I recommend pluck instead of boxing with White Album earlier? Yeah, here's the part where I elaborate. Now you can choose any spec you want with any stand, nobody's stopping you, but for White Album, I personally recommend pluck, boxing, and vampire. Now boxing is great and all since you're basically unkillable paired with a sub-spec, but boxing is really slow due to lack of burst options. The barrage for it is very wonky with its knockback and hitbox being very inconsistent, so I prefer using pluck or vamp with it instead. Pluck has way more moves, which is something White Album needs, and you also still have the damage reduction because of the ice armor passive, so you're still tanky, and it has great burst options, being Pierce Strike, Triple Pierce Strike, and Aerial Ace. Vamp has a really good spacing tool as well, which is Base Ripper Stingy Eyes, which you can use instead of wasting your flash freeze on something. And speaking of flash freeze, if your opponent happens to get stuck in flash freeze, that's where White Album becomes a monster. Getting your opponent stuck in flash freeze is the best thing for you since it stand crashes, which allows you to get certain moves off. If you're using boxing, I recommend going for an eye gouge, barrage, then jawbreaker, or a jawbreaker first if you're blocking. If you're using pluck, I recommend using Pierce Strike, Triple Pierce Strike, barrage, and then Crescent Slash. If you're using vamp, I recommend using blood suck if you need blood, or vamp freeze into laser. I say vamp freeze into laser instead of vamp freeze into blood suck because they can just block the blood suck, while laser it goes through a block, but you do need proper spacing for it. White Album is basically carried by its spec. If you use White Album specless, you're basically only using half the stand. Since White Album is so lackluster, it needs a spec. It's very necessary. Take that as you will, but I personally think it's a bad thing that you can't hold your own in a fight if you're grinding, which I don't even know why you would be grinding with or for White Album since it does basically no damage. You do you, I guess. I believe that the new moveset that I provided eliminates most of these problems, if not all of them, to make White Album feeling like a complete stand. Anyways, thank you for watching this video as it took forever to make. If you enjoyed and want to see more of this series, please consider liking the video as it helps me out a lot. And if you didn't, go ahead and dislike, but I won't see it. Anyways, thank you for watching, have a wonderful day, and stay safe.